Good morning, everybody. This is Stephen Pugh of the Home Bible College, and we're looking at 1 Corinthians chapter 12. This is August the 2nd, and we're going to deal with a number of passages in which Paul talks about what is called spiritual gifts. My password is taken from verse 1. He says, "Now concerning spiritual brethren, I would not have you ignorant." Paul is going to he's dealt with the immaturity of the Corinthians, and their immaturity it manifests itself right across the spectrum. Paul is going to deal with the immaturity of the Corinthian believers in relation to spiritual gifts and to the manifestation of the Spirit among them as believers. So that little word gifts in verse 1 shouldn't be there. It's now concerning spiritual brethren. I would not have you to be ignorant. And he brings out a number of points. The first point he brings out is that that previously, he says, you were idolaters. You were carried away to dumb idols. I want you to understand, he says, that no man, when he is speaking by the Spirit of God, when he is empowered and controlled and led by the Spirit of God, nobody in that state will call Christ accursed. And no one can say that Jesus is Lord except by the Holy Spirit. So Paul is saying there needs to be a clear demarcation line between the idolatry of your past life, and some of you still have idols to put away today, but the idolatry of your past life has no relation whatsoever to the operations of the Spirit of God among the churches. Then he goes on to say, now we must understand the context, because Paul is giving teaching here about spiritual gifts, which we call today the apostolic gifts primarily. The apostolic gifts because they are gifts that were unique to the apostolic age. That was a period in which there was no scriptures and in which the apostles were alive, and the ministry of God through the apostles to Israel was manifested by supernatural gifts, which were signs from God to the unbelieving Israelites. So there's a lot of them. He talks about them and he says there are different types of gifts, but it's the same God that gave them. There are different types of administrations, that is, there are different types of ministries that are of the Spirit which work alongside the main ministries. So, for example, there might be a number of main ministries, but there are other ministries, there are ministries, they work alongside. And he says there are different types of operations, so they operate in different ways as well. But it's the same God who is working all in all. So it is God the Holy Spirit that is working through the believers either in main ministry or in administration, but it is the same God. And he says, and the manifestation of the Spirit is given that it might profit every man. That's the key thing. Paul is saying, look, these gifts are not to be exercised in such a way that people do not get some profit from it. And he's going to explain that in much further detail later on. But the important thing he's saying in this particular passage is that all of them work together as one. It is the self-same Spirit which divides the gifts to every man according to his will. So does everybody have the same gift? Far from it, because there are diversities of gifts, and those gifts have been dispersed to every man that has a gift and every woman that has a gift, that they might use it to God's will. And so there we are. We have this opening thought, this opening part of these difficult verses in which Paul says, and this is my password for today, he says, now concerning spiritual brethren. Actually, it's not the brethren and their spirituality that he's speaking about. He's talking about the way in which their spiritual gifts are manifested among the believers, and those spiritual gifts are to be manifested in a mature way. They're to be manifested in maturity. That is the particular point of this passage. So God bless you, and look forward to speaking to you all again tomorrow. Bye for now.